Hi guys, so in today's video we're going to be taking a look at a few sort of everyday items that's more the everyday sort of work that we do in the shop. So I've got a BMW bumper here, which we've done some repair work to the back, as you can see where the primer is. So we're going to go through the base and the clear and obviously the blending work on the rear bumper and where we're going to blend it and why on the rear bumper. So we're not going to just solid paint the whole bumper. We've also got a tank here that's already been done, it's already been prepped, everything's ready for that. That's going to be doing in black gloss in base and clear. Again, it's just a track tank, so nothing completely out of the ordinary like some fancy, motorbike paint job or anything. And also off Mick's bike, we've got an infill fairing for around the front wheel. That just the same again, what's doing in black gloss. So we're going to do the motorbike parts first, and then we'll tack cloth the BMW bumper up, and then get the BMW bumper done, and then clear coat everything all in one, all at the same time. So I'm going to go out and get everything set up, and I'll see you guys in a second, and we'll just have a chat through what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it throughout the whole process, and also what we're using. So obviously the first thing always comes down to the prep work, so we're going to give everything a really good tack cloth off before we start. I'm just using the air from the spray gun, so like in around the filler cap hole there, I was just giving it a little flick with the air. Around any little tight areas like that, like around the back, etc. I'll just give them a little flick out with the air and have the air constantly on the spray gun as I'm tacking off, which will just help remove anything that's loose on the panel. But just concentrating on those little tight spots and little areas that you might have missed a little bit. And there I just noticed a tiny, a little bit of dust on the actual paper itself, so I just want to make sure I knock that off before I start. Now we're using a solvent base because this is just a very sort of quick, not a cheap job. We kind of pride ourselves on whether it's a quick job or an expensive job as being, all the quality being really nice on the work that we do. But this is just a track tank that a guy wanted tidying up, so it's nothing special. There's no 2-3 stage colours going on this. It's just a quick tidy, a quick prime, quick block out, give it a nice couple of coats of base coat, and then clear it up. And if we can get a nice gun finish on this, we can just send this out gun finish, because it is just for a track bike and not a show bike like the bikes that we normally sort of do. So I'm going to go around and get all the hard to reach areas first. Now this is very important, especially on a panel like this where it's got a lot of sort of underlying curves and edges that you can very easily miss, and the more like underhangs and overhangs on bike fairings. So there are areas that, although you look like you're getting the spray gun on them when you're painting the tank, you'll find that if you've got it set up like this, sometimes you could spray it and then you could get it out after you've cleared it, and notice that on the underhang, under the edges of the tank, that you could have just missed the slightest area and it'd be slightly see-through. And obviously, whether it's a track tank or not, we want to paint the job right. So we'll go around all those tight, hard to reach areas with the coat first, and then go over the bulk of the tank. Now by doing the tight, hard to reach areas first, that stops me having the chance of missing those areas. And if I get them on the first coat, and especially on something like this solid black that we're using on this, if I get them on the first coat, if I did happen to miss the tiniest little bit on the second coat, the chances are it's probably covered. So, but either way, on the first and second coat, I'd go around all those hard to reach areas and make sure I've got coverage on them before I then paint the bulk of the panel. So, second part here, I'm just going to do exactly the same again as I've just done on the tank. Now you will notice in the background I have got a bond bug in there. Now the reason that I've got the bond bug in there is we've stripped all the interior on that car down to bare fiberglass. We've then refiberglassed parts of it and used epoxy resin rather than fiberglass resin to redo a lot of the interior, or should I say the whole interior on the car, to get a nice good solid fresh coat on there. So the reason that that's sitting in the back of the booth out of the way of these panels is so that that can get some extra heat around it for around about 7 days. So if I've got little bits and bobs in and out of the booth like I have this week, it's just been a really bitty week of quite a few bike panels and a couple of bumpers and odds and ends, rather than like having the cars in the booth. It's just been parts rather than a car in here. I can leave that in the back of the booth it's where the air comes into the booth, so the overspray is being carried well away from the car, so nothing's going to land on the car. But the extra heat during the week will aid the curing process on the epoxy, which stops me having to put it in here and run a couple of bake cycles over the week instead, which obviously would cost a lot more in fuel. And especially at the minute when we're still using a space heater in the booth to run the bake side of things, because the bake part of the booth's still not fixed yet. It will be shortly, but in the meantime we're just using the space heater, which runs on the same fuel and everything as the rest of the shop anyway. All our powder coating, ovens, and the booth itself and everything all runs on kerosene, so do all our workshop heaters and everything, so we can just whip that in here. And as long as we switch the space heater on after the booth's cleared, and obviously after the panels have had a good amount of time to flash off, then it'll be no issue using a space heater as a bake in a booth anyway. And you tend to find that around about 10 minutes, that 30 kilowatt space heater will get the booth up to around about 60 degrees. Now, second coat I've just done on the tank. I've done that exactly the same as I did the first coat, making sure I get the little edges and all the little hard to reach areas. Now, with this just being a black gloss, there's no metallic in it. If I put 2 really nice wet coats down, I can literally just do this in a 2-coat system. Just 2 full wet coats. I know I've got full coverage. It's black gloss. Well, it's just black base coat. It covers extremely well, so I've got no reason to need to colour check it. And obviously, because we've got no metallics or pills or anything like that, then I also don't need to do a drop coat or anything. So as long as I know that I've got full coverage on all those little holes and all those little gaps, then 2 coats on these particular parts is no issue whatsoever. And I can just 2 coat them up, and then we can get some paint mixed up, and then we can move on to the BMW bumper. Now, I know a few of you might look at this and think, well, you know, how can you get away with painting 2 colours in one booth? So if you don't know much about how booths work, our particular booth is the air comes in through the roof, primarily at the front of the booth, and is extracted through the rear. So if I base coat the parts that are the furthest back in the booth away from the filters first, the extraction filter, first, and then base coat this one towards the very front of the booth, as I would call it, where the filter is for the extraction, then all the overspray is carried straight backwards now from where I'm stood, straight through the filter. So no overspray will carry forward into the booth. Everything will be pulled straight backwards and out behind me. So there's no issue whatsoever if your booth's running well with painting 2 different colours in the same booth. Now, as far as this bumper goes, you'll just notice that I'm doing something a little bit differently to what I would normally do on a job. So I'm just going around and doing the little blend sections first, because with painting the bumper off the car, it's BMW, it's space grey. Space grey sometimes can be a little bit awkward, although, you know, when it first came out, it was quite an awkward colour, but now there seems to be a lot more shades of it, so it's a little bit easier to match. But still, I don't want to solely paint the bumper because I don't want the bumper to be off to the rest of the car. So as you can see there, I've just stopped right bang on where that swage line is, so my fresh paint won't be touching where this bumper bolts up to the car. Now I've gone across those blend areas and just lightly blended out around the 2 sides of the bumper. I'm going to go around and now and just fill in the middle where we've done the actual repair. Now I don't have to worry about blending that now because I've already blended the edges of the bumper, so I can just now solidly paint the middle. First coat, I'm just going to put down a medium wet coat, and then pretty much the way I did this was just pretty much go back to back 3 medium wet coats. It's quite warm in the booth today, well, on this particular day, so I'd say it's probably about 28 degrees Celsius. So we're using solvent base again just for a quick job on this bumper. This isn't actually one of my jobs, this bumper. A friend of mine has got a body shop a few towns over, and he's just had a problematic second-hand booth taken out that he had put in not long ago. And while he's waiting for his new booth to put in, he asked me if I could help him out and just do a few jobs for him. So hence, this is one of his jobs, so I'm just giving him a quick help out with getting this job repaired and painted for him, so we can keep the shop tickling over while he's on the changeover for the booth. So again, on that side, I've just done a quick little flick for the blend. I'm just going to do the same again on this side, and then go straight back over the middle of this bumper. Again, just to colour up that centre section where I've done the repair work to it. Now, a couple of wet coats over this will be absolutely fine, because before I paint, before I started putting the actual colour on this bumper, I gave the whole bumper a coat of clear base coat. Now, the clear base coat will help fill in, or slightly fill in, some of the prep scratches and the prep marks in the bumper, and it will also make this colour over the top a lot quicker and a lot faster and a lot more effortless to blend. So I've given it 2 coats now. I'm just going to go straight back over it, give it another little quick flick round just to make sure I've got all the edges, and then I'll go out of the booth, I'll wash my gun out, give this around about 10 to 15 minutes to let everything flash right off before mixing my clear coat up, and then getting in the booth and we can smash some clear on. Now, for anyone who's going to say that my paint bench is really dirty, it is a removable film on top of my paint bench, so we just change that every now and again, so don't stress over that. Don't get in a flap about the fact there's paint on a bench. It's a paint mixing bench, it gets paint on it. Now, for this whole job so far, I've used the Segola 4600 DVR Aqua. It's got a 1.2 XL setup in it, and for clear coat, I'm going to be using the Final Systems Ultimate Clear. Now, I've been using this for a bit, and I have just shot a review video on this for you guys that wanted to see a bit of review on this and what I think of it. So I will probably get that edited and uploaded very shortly for you guys. Now, as I've said in previous videos, I do prefer this if you just mix it 2-to-1 with hardener, but I do not like their hardeners. I think their hardeners are way too fast. I've tried the fast and the extra fast or the super rapid or whatever it is, and they all pull back like a hell of a lot. And by pull back, what I mean is you can paint it, it'll have a really nice gloss, and then when it dries down, the surface finish pulls in a little bit as it dries because the hardeners are a little bit too fast for it, I personally think, resulting in a gloss drop and a little bit of a drop in the final finish on your parts as well. Now, I've swapped over to either using a medium or a fast from another manufacturer called Churchill. I find the medium is really nice. On this particular day, it was quite warm, so it wasn't as warm as it has been, so I used the fast, sorry, not the medium on this day. But as I said, it's not their fast hardener, it's a Churchill, pretty much generic fast hardener. A lot of body shop suppliers have it, so it's quite easy to get hold of, or you can get hold of it online as well. And again, with the Churchill fast or the Churchill medium, I found that I get no dieback, no gloss drop. It doesn't pinch up because it's drying too fast. It's got a pretty good flash off time, as you'll see shortly, and you can get a really nice gun finish with this. So I'm running this at around about, I think about 1.6 to 1.8 bar through this gun, and I'm running it at around about 1.5 turns out only. I've got a nice tight overlap going on, as you can see. I was speaking actually to one of my subscribers the other day. He dropped me a message on Facebook, and he was just asking me a few questions about the way that I paint, because he said that it was quite strange when he watches a few people and they're very fast and they look like they're bucketing loads of paint on and they're moving really quickly, whereas I seem to look like I am painting a lot slower. My reply to that is, you know, I pick these Segolas, and the guns that I spray with, it's not that I don't want to paint fast or I don't want to throw, 20 litres of paint a minute out. It's the fact that I like to be in control of what I'm doing, and I like to be in control of the finish that I end up with, rather than just winding everything on full, running around a car, smashing it all out as fast as I can, running out of the booth, hitting bake, coming in and hoping it hasn't run all over the floor. I'd rather try and take my best to take that out of the equation. For me, it's about getting the neatest, nicest final gun finish that I can on a job, so that I can reduce the amount of polishing time in the workshop, which obviously reduces cost and labour on a job. And the nicer the gun finish I can get, the quicker we can get one job out and the next job in the booth. So for me, it has its benefits. I'd rather spend an extra 5 minutes in the booth rather than spend half an hour in the workshop trying to take a run out. Now, some people may agree with that, some people may not agree with that. You know, I'd rather take the slow and steady approach, be more controlled, be more precise in what I'm doing, and take my time. You know, like as I've said in a lot of previous videos, we put so much work into getting panels and parts and like resprays and restorations prepped for paint. You know, sometimes we can spend weeks on a car to get it prepped, to only spend maybe 2 hours actually spraying it in a booth. So what is the point in rushing this final stage? Take your time, get the gun finish that you want, you know. And again, you'll reduce the time that you're going to need to spend on the job after you've finished it. And, you know, if you've not got runs and sags and, you know, build up on a panel, you know, those are the sorts of things that can sometimes take quite a long time to get rid of. And also, unless you're extremely good at getting rid of them, 90% of the time I would say that even if you are good at getting rid of them, you can still see where they were. Because if you were going for like a factory orange peel on something and you got a run down one section and then you need to block that run out, that's going to be like a perfectly smooth section on a panel, whereas the rest of the panel will have orange peel all over it. So the nicer, you know, more even, more consistent you can get it in the booth is, you know, obviously better all round when you come to put the job out into the workshop and it comes around to the nibbing and the polishing and the sort of paintwork detailing side of things, where we're getting, you know, where you would address any runs or issues or anything like that. You know, the better it comes out the booth, the less time we need to spend on it afterwards. Because I'd say that 90% of the work that goes into a car is before it even gets into the spray booth. So why rush that last 10-15% in the booth? It's just pointless. So that's the first coat down. I have literally just gone straight out, mixed up an extra spot of clear coat, and then come straight back in. So we're probably talking with maybe 2 to 3 minutes since we stopped painting. So the flash off time, say overall this bumper from starting painting it to painting the rest of the parts and going back out, we've probably had around about 5 to 10 minutes now in total. So I'm just going to use the stand there, check that it feels nice and tacky and that it's at the stage where I can overcoat the bumper. You don't want it wet, but you don't want it dry. You just want it at that tacky stage, almost like you're putting the finger of your glove on the sticky part of masking tape. And then again, I've got the same gun settings. I think I did just knock this up to about 1.8 1.8 bar on this last coat, just to give it a slightly smoother, wetter finish on this final coat. But I've still got it only 1.5 turns out in the fluid. You do not need to bucket the stuff on. Just take your time. You know, if you need it slightly wetter, then you can slow down a little bit. If you need a slightly drier, finer finish, you can just speed up a little bit. You know, there's no need to rush too much. Everything that we use, spray gun wise, etc., you know, they've all got adjustment on them for a reason. They're not every single spray gun is meant to run full whack, you know. And actually, this guy called Stuart that's been in for a lot of training days this past few months with me, and he said the same thing. He watches some people and they say run it on full whack, you know, run full fluid, full fan, and open everything wide open. I said that's fine if you're in a hot country or you're in, you know, certain areas. But here in the UK, you know, 2 weeks ago, we were getting temperatures of 31 degrees C. This week, we had a day where it was 13. So you need to be adjusting your spray gun and your fluid settings to what you can use on the day. Now, myself, I've been painting for a long time, so I tend to find it quite easy. I know when it's a hot day that I can put a lot more fluid out, and I need to keep the panel wet, whereas on a cooler day sometimes I might need to take the fluid back a little bit just to be on the safe side, to again stop the issues of any runs or anything. Now these, I'm going for a nice wet factory look on all these panels that I'm painting here, so I'm using a reasonable amount of fluid, but I've probably knocked it up to about a 70% overlap rather than a 50% overlap, because I just want a nice clean wet gun finish This being a track tank, it doesn't need to look like glass, so it's pointless, you know, going for any more fluid. I just want a nice factory looking gloss black tank when this is done, which I think we achieved very nicely, to be honest with you, on this tank. And for a clear coat that's, I think this stuff's around 55, 60 quid, somewhere around there, if you buy it as a kit. I've got to be honest, you look at the photos and the video at the end, you can't knock the finish on this for a cheap clear coat. It has 0 gloss drop when it's air dried, and I've found if you do change the hardeners over, you're going to get 0 gloss drop when it's either air dried or baked. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and this little look into what would be a sort of normal day in the booth, rather than, or like a normal afternoon's painting in the booth, rather than obviously a big tutorial or, you know, a big series. The last video that I put up of just painting a car seemed to pop off a lot better than the previous videos that we've done as a series, so I'm going to try and include some more of these so you can get a little bit more insight into what I do, how I do it, why I do it, and also what I use. So that's it for me for today, guys, and I'll see you again soon for the next one. Bye for now.